Thank you for joining the June session of Dr. Jaspersoft. I'm your host, Paul Jimenez. Today, we'll be going through Securing Access Simplified, implementing OAuth integration in JasperReports Server. Today, I have one speaker for you, and it is Jitendra. Jitendra, thank you for joining us today. I do appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul.
A quick disclaimer slide. And then the next Dr. Jasper session is the second Thursday of every month. The next one will be July 10th, and that will be about mastering the REST API client library for JasperReports Server. Today's agenda is going to be what is single sign-on, OAuth 2.0 overview, JasperReports Server OAuth 2.0 sequence diagram, the Okta overview, the Okta OAuth server configuration, JasperReports server configuration, the demo, troubleshooting, Q&A, and then we'll show off the resources. Please feel free to submit any questions you have. We'll try our best to answer them. If we need something to go in detail or anything, we'll try our best to do that during the live session too. So please let us know any questions you may have. Towards the end, we will have a Q&A session. It's a little different than we've done previously, but we'll definitely have it, and I think it's a great addition to this. And so if a question can be held to the end, we recommend asking at that time. I'll go ahead and hand off to Jitendra. Excuse me. Thank you, Jitendra.
So hello all, welcome to Dr. Jaspersoft session. Today we are going to talk about the secure access to JasperReports Server using OAuth 2.0, which is available now out of the box with JasperReports Server 9.0 onwards. So what we will do is we will follow the agenda as mentioned here. We'll talk about some theories first, then we'll get into the demo, and we'll try to integrate JasperReports Server with OAuth Server and go through all the configuration changes required. So let's start with first, what is single sign-on? Single sign-on is an authentication process that allows user to log in once and then gain access to multiple applications or systems without having to log in again for each of the application, right? So it is like sign on single time and then access all the applications. Now, common protocols supported by JasperReports Server for SSO are like SAML, LDAP, CAS, OAuth 2.0, and pre-auth token-based custom authentication mechanism. So this is what you can use when you want to integrate SSO with JasperReports Server. LDAP has been supported out of the box with JRS for some time, while OAuth 2.0 is supported out of the box from JasperReports Server 9.0 onwards. So during the process of single sign-on, what happens is JasperReports Server tries to fetch all the user profile data from OAuth server or any SSO authentication server, and fetches all the roles, attributes, or user profile data and sync that up with the JasperReports server. And the main advantage of that is all the roles and all the access information related to users are up to date in JasperReports server. So when user logs in, user has the access rights to resources within JasperReports server as per their latest roles or any changes to their profile data. Now, this one is the pictorial view of with and without SSO. Without SSO, user needs to log in to each of the website or application or system every time using its own credentials, have to take care of all the different credentials across different websites. While with SSO, user needs to log in only once and then gain access to multiple applications, systems, or servers without needing to log in again because of the authentication authorization server in place, which takes care of sharing the access rights across applications. The bottom picture explains the high-level benefits in terms of user experience. So user experience without SSO is always complex. User has to manage multiple application-related credentials, has to make sure like the credentials are not shared across applications, so it is increased security risks. Multiple login required each time application they need to access any application, they require to log into each of the applications. While with SSO, it is more simplified management, enhanced security, because now there are no multiple credentials and being used across multiple sites or applications, and it is more streamlined, simpler user experience. Now let's talk about OAuth 2.0. So we are getting into deeper and deeper, like from high level single sign-on to now we are talking about OAuth. OAuth is open authorization. It is an authorization protocol that enables secure access delegation. That means user can delegate access rights to applications, and this allows applications to access resources or perform actions on behalf of users without even exposing their credentials. So this is a mechanism to delegate their access. OpenID Connect, OIDC, is an authentication protocol built on top of OAuth 2.0. So it enables applications to verify identity of the user and obtain basic profile information. So this is where it gets all the details about user profile, user roles, user access rights, and then application can gain access to that through the OAuth server. In short, like what is OIDC versus OAuth 2.0? OIDC is actually it's equal to OAuth 2.0 plus ID token plus user API. That's the in short what OIDC is. Now, this is where we are talking about OAuth 2.0 sequence diagram when user is trying to access Jasper Report Server. So let's go through that. This will give an idea about like what happens behind the scene when Jasper Report Server is using OAuth server to validate user. So user is trying to access Jasper Report Server first time and user is not logged into Jasper Report Server. GRS will redirect user to OAuth server URL. And this is all based on the configurations done on the OAuth server and Jasper Report Server. Both are communicating with each other. So Jasper Report Server will redirect user to OAuth server to a particular OAuth URL. There, the OAuth server will verify if the user is already logged in or not. As we talked about, it only needs to be logged in once per session. So if the user is not logged into OAuth server, then user will be presented with the credential screen, which is login ID password screen, where user will provide that and log into this OAuth server. Then the OAuth server, based on the successful authentication, will grant authorization and send that and then redirect the user back to Jasper Report Server with authorization code. That authorization code is what Jasper Server will use to get the token which is like access token and ID token from OAuth server. Once the tokens are exchanged, Jasper Report Server will verify the identity of the user and allow user to log in based on the available access rights in the token exchanged between the OAuth server and Jasper Report Server. So this is what is end-to-end. This is how user gain access to resources in the Jasper Report Server using OAuth integration. Next slide, which is now let's talk about further. What we are going to do is we will talk about one of the available identity providers. So we are going to talk about Okta. Okta is an identity and access management service. So what it allows organizations is to manage users' login mechanism to different applications and devices. So it is the server which knows about user profile, has information about applications and what all the roles and access available to user. So what does Okta do? It acts as identity provider, allows user and applications to log in once and access applications and services without needing to log in again, right? So that's the SSO formula. So now Okta provides user management like user creation, deactivation, role assignment. So user profile management and user role management, all you're doing through one centralized server. Other identity providers. So I just want to mention here like GRS supports integration with all standard identity providers like Keycloak, Azure AD, AWS Cognito, Google Auth, etc. But today we will talk about Okta as an example, like how to configure Okta and how to integrate that with Jasper Report Server with OAuth 2.0. So each provider in short, will require to set up users, role, profile attributes. User will require, administrator basically will require to set up all these profile data for users and attributes in the centralized authorization server. And that is what the authorization server will use to generate token or exchange token with any applications registered with the OAuth server. So now let's get into further detail. Now we get into more technical aspect of it, which is like how the Okta can be configured so we can allow Jasper Report Server register to Okta. So I'll switch to Okta page. Let me sign in. Again, I got signed out. So I am logged in. So what we are going to do is I'll just go back and forth with the slides also to explain. So this is what we will go through. We will talk about users, how to set up users, how to set up roles, how to set up application, and how to define scopes and claims. This is what getting exchanged between Jasper Report Server and authorization server to exchange users information. So here, let's start with the directory under which we have people. People means here we talk about users. I have certain users defined. You can create as many users you want based on the license you have. And then once you create the user, you associate users with groups, and groups are roles. And roles can be like application specific. So right now I have some application like GRS specific roles, GRS admin, GRS user, GRS role user, and I have some generic roles like Okta administrator and everyone, a generic common group. So this is what, when you get into a particular group, you can assign people, which is you can assign users, and that's how you associate users with their roles. Now let's talk about next thing, which is application. So I already have defined my GRS application here. I will open up that application, but when you create a new application, you get same screen, similar, I would say, where you have to define certain things about application. So when you create any application, Okta will create client ID and client secret for your application. That is what you use to integrate your application with Okta, and that is how Okta identifies individual applications. Once you define that, this is also an important aspect, which is grant type, like how you want your application to work with the Okta or any other authorization server. So here we have defined like client credentials, authorization code. This is what the mechanism OAuth 2.0 is using. Refresh token, if the token gets expired, how to get the refresh token, and then the hybrid token-based ID token, access token-based grant type. Then certain other information you can choose based on your organization's rules. What I have here, which is more important, is like login. So when you register your application, you always need the redirect URI. Redirect URI is the one which is where any authorization server, like here we are talking about Okta, will redirect user to based on user, like what application user is trying to access. So based on that, user get redirect to Jasper Report Server because this application is associated with Jasper Report Server. So this is the URL it is using. And I think that covers like most important aspect of that. Let's get into further down into the authorization server configuration. So authorization server, I'm using the default one, but you can create the authorization server based on your need further in the Okta. Let's talk about what authorization server does and what you need to configure here. So in the authorization server configuration, when you create authorization server, you provide name of the authorization server, and then you also get from Okta this metadata URI. This is a very important URI. We'll talk about this, and we will use this multiple places to configure Okta. So let me open up that. So if you see, when you open that metadata URI, you see lot of URIs defined here with different key value pairs. And this is what is useful when you define this information in Jasper Report Server configuration. So we'll go through this one by one when we define or configure Jasper Report Server. Now let's talk about scopes. So these are like many scopes available. These are the assigned scopes for or the available scopes within the authorization server. What we will do is we will define certain scopes, what Jasper Report Server application itself in itself want to gain access from authorization server. While claims are what being passed from authorization server to Jasper Report Server, and that is what the user information, which is as a JOT token being passed to Jasper Report Server. So what I have defined is I have defined two tokens, ID token and access token, with what information to be passed in each of the token. So in ID token, we have user ID and roles. In access token, we have user ID, roles, and the subject information. So this is what being exchanged, scopes and claims between Jasper Report Server and OAuth server. Now let's talk about access policies. So here, we'll not get into more details, but this is just a high level to give you an idea that you can define your more specific rules about token, like what is your token expiration, your token structure, certain rules around those you can define further, streamline it based on your organization need when you configure here. So this covers actually configuration of Okta. So now let's get into Jasper Report Server. So let's say we have gone through this OAuth configuration. We'll go to the next slide, which talks about Jasper Report Server configuration. What we will go into is detail about high-level configuration required for Jasper Report Server to integrate with OAuth server. So let me open up that. Okay, let me bring my screen here. Yeah, so if you see here, this one is the web.xml. Web.xml is which is what resides in which is Jasper Report Server specific web.xml file, which is there in the webin folder. So what we are going to do is we will enable OAuth mechanism within the Jasper Report Server application. So what we need to do is we need to add this profile. Once we do that and restart the Jasper Report Server, OAuth will get initiated part of the Jasper Report Server application itself. So this is what is required to initialize OAuth. Then we need to configure OAuth -client config.properties files. And this file resides in webin inside the classes folder. So I have given a path here. So web.xml is directly within the webin, and the OAuth client config file is within the webin classes folder. So which is what now we will configure. So registration ID, this is what you can define anything, but you need to make sure like you use this everywhere, wherever you are defining the URI. So we are going with the default value OIDC. The client ID is the client ID we talked about with the authorization server. So in Okta, we have defined client ID and client secret. Then we have authentication method, which is client secret post, which is again the default one, which is through which the Jasper report server will communicate with OAuth server. Redirect URI. Now this is the URI which we have defined as a redirect URI in Okta also, that this is where user will get redirected once user is authenticated via OAuth server. The scope is what we were talking about, which Jasper report server sends to OAuth server. Right now we are only asking for OpenID and email claims, sorry, email scopes, and this is what we will send to Okta. Now comes the authorization URI. So this is the URI which we talked about in metadata URI for Okta, from where we can capture this information. So let's go to that and we review how we use that. So this is the all the URIs available in the
Hey,
metadata.
Jitendra. Sorry to
Yes.
interrupt. We got one quick question while you're still on the topic.
Yeah.
Does Jasper support PKCE option for OIDC?
Yes. Actually, it depends. Like, yes, if your auth server supports that, we can configure that too. But it's quite a different configuration, so it is available.
Good to know. Thank you, Jitendra.
Yeah, sure. So let's again talk about authorization endpoint. So this is the authorized endpoint, which we will pick up authorization endpoint, and we copy paste this endpoint to authorization URI. Then comes the filter process URL. This one is the entry point or redirect URI path. So if you see the redirect URI, we have defined OAuth as an endpoint. So that is what you need to use as a filter process URI. The token URI is how the token will be exchanged from Jasper Report Server to OAuth server. So that is what again we get from here, which is the token endpoint. So we have the token endpoint here, and that is what we use in the Jasper Report Server configuration. Like that, JWK URI you will find it here in the metadata URI. Issuer URI is what also we are picking up from here. And then comes the entry point. Entry point is when like user hits this URL, then user will the authorization or the auth workflow will initiate. So for that, we will see how it enables. Like when we start the demo, we will see exactly how this entry point is used to start the auth workflow. The logout URL, this is the one which you can define as a custom page. Right now, I have defined a custom logout page here. You can define your own custom page where you can control like whether you want to log out from Okta or you want to display logout page and end the session with Jasper Report Server only. So and so you can control that mechanism here. Then we have this attributes. So auth user attributes mapping is what we use to get data from auth server to Jasper Report server. So auth server will have email or any other attributes sent to Jasper Report server. And here we are configuring that when we get the JOT token from auth server, what all elements we need to look into, what all attributes or key value pair we need to look into, and where these are the keys. So right now we are using email as the display name, as the username, as the email itself. But whatever attributes you are sending in the JOT token is what you can parse and use here for your profile data. This is the organization ID. If you are sending, if you are having the enterprise license with multiple organization, then you can use this to gain access to your information about organization for that user. So now this one talks about how the roles will be exchanged. So when OAuth server sends the token, it will have groups in it, and Jasper Report server will pick it up. For profile attributes, which any custom profile attributes you want to send, it should have prefix with this one. So this is all the configuration it defines, allows you to define so that you know how your OAuth server is going to communicate with Jasper Report server and exchange data. This is your default organization for any user. This is the role mapping. So you remember, and we'll again see that in the Okta, we have two different roles defined. And if any user is coming with any of those roles, it will be mapped to any internal role within the Jasper Report server against these two roles. And then we talk about the admin usernames, which is a default user who gets the admin access and the admin administrative roles. So this is what we need to define in this configuration file. Now, let's talk about all these details, what I talked about. This is available in the authentication cookbook. So let me show you that, which is very high level. You understand. Let me open that up. So this is the authentication cookbook. And here the OAuth authentication related, all the configuration and the mechanisms are explained. So once you access that, you understand like what to configure on the Jasper Report server side, right? While for OAuth server, you need to follow their documentation to understand how each identity provider needs to be configured. I will go back to our slides. So now let's get into the demo part. So now we will actually go through different scenarios to use OAuth as a mechanism for user to log into Jasper Report Server. So first, what I will do is I'll show you the super user login. So let me log in with super user access here. Yeah. So I think this user has super user access. So let's review the user tab. So here you see we have certain users created. I'll go and actually delete few of these users because we want to see like how these users are getting created. So now you see this is the view we have. These are the users we have. We do not have any other user which we are going to use to log in through Okta. Now let's go to Okta application. I will log out any user who has been logged in. I'll make sure I'm logged out from Okta. So now let's start with this particular user and log into Jasper Report Server. So before that, so this is the login screen. Basically, I was expecting uh, the Okta screen, login screen. So let's initiate the OAuth workflow. When I hit this Jasper Server Pro URL, it will redirect me to Okta screen. So this is where the exchange started. So as soon as I hit the Jasper Server Pro and I have enabled the OAuth workflow started. It went to any authorization server configured on the Jasper Report server side and launched the Okta workflow where Okta has identified that user is not logged in, so it has presented user the login screen. Now this was my last logged in user, so I got that user to log in. Let me log into this user and let's see what happens. So when I logged into Okta, Okta actually redirected back to me to Jasper Report Server. Now both servers had exchange of information, validated the user, identified the user. Now user has been logged in and user's roles and all the other profile data has been created. So you see here, this is a test user 6251. Now if we go back to our admin screen, here that user doesn't exist. But now once I refresh that, now we see that user is here and that user has two roles assigned, which is role user and role administrator. So this user has admin access, and that's why you see all this administrative access available to that user. So this is one example where we logged in with the admin access rights. Let me log out from here and let's try to log in with another user. Now again, you see I have a very simple custom logout page. You can have your own logout page and session restriction or auth server based. If you want to log user out from that, you need to have some custom coding implemented there based on the auth server's requirement. So now once we have logged out, let's log the user out from the Okta also so that we can test another scenario. Now user has logged out. Let's reinitiate the auth workflow and let's log in with another user. And if you see here, this user has been logged in. Again, the user's roles and profile data has been created, but now user has a limited access. User doesn't have administrative access. User can create report, view report, and certain access rights given to that user based on the roles assigned in the Jasper report server. So what you see here, like if we go back to Okta and look into the users or particularly groups scenario, like if we see this admin user that does not have 6252 user, only 6251 user. So when we talk about JRS user only, you see the JRS user is the 6252 is part of the JRS user. And JRS user has very limited access given here through role-based mechanism in Jasper Report Server. So now you see only limited access available to that user. Once, if any user, now I'm just logging it out, and again, I'll try one more scenario. So let me go back. Let me go back. So here 6252 user is created now, and only role underscore user is there. We'll go back to the user screen. We'll log out from that. We'll log out from Okta, and we'll try to use another scenario. Let's see that, and then I'll explain what that scenario is. So now we'll try with the third user, and we will log in and we'll see what happens if that user doesn't have any access in the Jasper report server, right? Access denied. So this user, if you see, go back to Okta, and if we see the user 6253, that 6253 user is actually not having any groups related to JRS. It is only part of the everyone group. So that means this user is not associated with application. And once that was identified, Jasper report server actually blocked that user to access. Even that user is not getting created here in the system. So it's completely blocked. So this is the scenarios I wanted to discuss in our demo. Let me go through the slides again and discuss few more points. So let's talk about troubleshooting, right? Now we understood like, oh, we have to configure multiple things. We have to get through many configurations on authorization server side. We have to configure many things on the Jasper report server side. Now, what happens if some kind of mistake is there or something is missing in configuration? How to identify those things? So to do that, I will explain how you can troubleshoot this kind of issues. So let's go to our login screen again. What I will do is I will log the user out of Okta. I will pick up the administrator here, the user which we use first, and I'll initiate the Okta workflow. But before that, what I will do is I will open up my developer tool. So this is very handy. Like in browser, you can completely see the workflow of how the Okta and Jasper server exchanges information. Certain things are behind the scenes, certain things which are visible here. At least you can see the workflow. So let's look into the network tab. What happens? Let's say if we start this workflow and we went and we reached to Okta. We went through the Jasper report server and then reached to the Okta login screen. If you see here, it tried to access the home page. From there, it went to the OIDC URL, which is our entry point URL. From there, it actually sent request to OAuth server with the required credentials like the client ID, secret, and that is what is passed to Okta. Okta validated that. Based on that, it launched the login screen, and now we have been presented this one. So let's try to log in and see now what happens next. So what is how this is useful is like if any configuration is not correctly done, you will see error here where you will see that it's not able to reach certain URLs, certain the URIs or certain information passed as a parameter are not correct. So you can verify those things pretty easily with this mechanism. So let's log into that and see further what happens. So now you see that from Okta directly user came to Jasper report server and logged in. And you see here Okta redirected user to Jasper report server. First, it took the token exchange. Then using that token basically or the authorization code, it redirected user to Jasper report server. Now Jasper report server uses the authorization code and behind the scene talks with OAuth server for the exchange of tokens. And once that token information is there, everything is passed, user identity is verified, user can gain access to the application page. So this is one way where you can pretty much see everything live and verify if there are any errors, what kind of a configuration issues are there. So this is where basically you can identify issues with Okta configuration, certain level, Jasper report server configuration. Apart from that, you can always look into Jasper report server log file, which will always have more detailed logs about every class involved in this communication between Jasper report server and Okta. If you find that certain information are there about the class which identifies like there are issues in configuration, exceptions are thrown in the log file, but it's not enough, whatever information is provided, then you can always bring that class into debug mode. And that's why you can gain access to more information about the exception. So how do you do that? You can always, as I'm logged in with administrative, right? I can go to um, okay, I am not here at a super user, so I need to go back to my super user access. Um, yeah, so in this screen, I'm logged in as super user, so I can gain access to server settings. In the server settings, log settings, I can add that particular class. Now, how to identify these classes and how to work with it, right? So basically, I have added this class in the debug mode. You always need to have fully qualified class name which you specify here and change it into debug mode, and that adds that class into the list of classes available for the debug mode, and that is the only change you need to do. But how to identify those classes? There are two ways. One is when you go through the log file, you can see those classes throwing errors and you understand like these are the exceptions thrown and I want more details about that. You add that class here. And second option is you go to your application context OIDC XML configuration file. This is the configuration file related to OIDC there in the webin folder. And here you have all the classes involved, all the beans involved, which communicates and are configured to communicate with OAuth server. So this is where you can identify your class, or if you want any particular information about debug level details about any class like authentication provider or the authentication filter, you can get the qualified name from here and add it to the debug mode. So these are the ways you can troubleshoot and identify configuration issues and work with your configuration for OAuth 2.0. So yeah, that completes my demo. Yeah, let us know any other questions and we will answer those like and hand it over now the screen to Paul. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Jitendra. That was great. We appreciate it. Let me go ahead and share my screen real quick. All right. As always, our resources will be posted after the webinar is concluded, along with our video of the recording. It'll be posted on YouTube on our webpage. So please feel free to use those. If you have any questions, please let us know here as we're wrapping up, and we'll try our best to answer any of those. Other than that, if you have any questions, we'll give like a moment or two. Um, right here, we have upcoming events from our marketing team. June 18th, Wednesday, join us for a live Jaspersoft demo. June 26th is a Thursday. It'll be a roadmap, so the road ahead, what's next for Jaspersoft and Jakarta EE. And so you can find all those events at jaspersoft.com/events. So please feel free to join us for any of those. They're very informative and they give us pretty much a preview of what's to come. I don't see any questions, so last but not least, thank you for joining us today. We do appreciate it. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us, engage with us, join us on the community forums, submit a case, email me directly. It looks like we have one last question that came in really quickly. Jitendra says, is this authentication feasible in 9.0.1 hotfix 2 version with OAuth authentication?
Yeah, so 9.00 onwards, we have this out of the box available. So you just need to configure this to integrate with OAuth server.
Awesome. And then you said, just a follow-up question. You said this is available out of the box for JS 9.0. Did it require a customization before 9.0? So say if some of our customers want this and they're on a little older version.
Yes, before 9.0, you will require to do custom coding to integrate. You need to implement the logic behind for communicating JasperReports Server with OAuth server, so it requires customization. Yeah.
Awesome. We have one more question. I think this kind of coincided with the first question you asked. Um, So what I understand is JRS 9.0 can be configured to work with any standard OAuth server, similar to what you've shown for Okta. Is that correct?
Correct. So you can configure it against any other than Okta, like Azure AD, Google Auth, or Keycloak, which is an open source Auth server. So you can configure it with any of those servers.
Awesome. One more question. Do we have any specific documentation for the same dedicated for 9.0.1 hotfix 2? I might be able to help with this. Jatinder probably knows too, but we have all our documentation online on the Jaspersoft website. Let me see if I can find you a link real quick directly for this person who asked the question. But I don't
Yes.
know if you have. I'm sorry, Jatinder. I was just gonna say I don't know if you have any specific documentation you'd like to point out.
Yeah, I think we have it in the resources slide you have. If you share that, and the authentication cookbook which I showed, we have that link also, and that is the one which has all the information about 900 specific configuration. So yeah, the last item, which is authentication cookbook.
Okay, awesome. So that link will be there in the slides once this get posted. As always, you can always find our documentation on the community websites, community.jaspersoft.com/documentation. There'll be documentations for every version we have on that website. So with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you again, everyone, for joining. We do appreciate it. Everyone, take care. Have a good one, and I will see you next time.
Thank you.